Located 2,500 miles off the coast of Peru in the heart of the South Pacific Ocean lies Easter Island, also known as Rapa Nui. This is the easternmost Polynesian island and the most remote inhabited place on the planet. Many see it as one of the most mysterious pre-Diluvian sites on the planet, mainly because of the iconic and still unexplained Moai statues that dot the island, together with the massive megalithic stone structures that are identical to those found in South America, Egypt, and Japan. The Moai statues of Easter Island are often recognized as one of the most fascinating archaeological mysteries in the world. They were first encountered by Europeans in 1722 when Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen arrived on the island on Easter Sunday, from which the island derived its name. These colossal stone figures have intrigued archaeologists and visitors for centuries due to their massive scale and the mystery surrounding their creation and purpose. Nearly 900 statues exist, varying in height from a modest 3 feet or 1 meter to an impressive 33 feet or 10 meters. Some of these statues weigh up to 82 tons. That's 3 times more than the megalithic stones at Stonehenge. Initially, it was thought that the Moai statues were just these massive heads with no bodies. However, in 2017, researchers made an excavation revealing that the statues have torsos and truncated waists buried in the ground. According to mainstream historians, the statues are 800 years old. However, 800 is not enough for the ground to swallow 25 feet of the statues, especially when you consider the climate on Easter Island. Easter Island's soil accumulation rate is not precisely documented, but considering the island's relatively sparse vegetation and volcanic origin, the rate of soil buildup could be slower than more fertile or densely vegetated areas. If we assume a moderate deposition rate of about 0.5 millimeters per year, this means that it might take approximately 15,200 years for 25 feet of a statue to be naturally buried on Easter Island. Certainly, this estimate is highly speculative and could vary significantly. Regardless of the precise number of years, it is clear that they would not be as few as 800 years. And it's clear the statues weren't buried intentionally, as there were remarkable carvings on the buried bodies. All of the statues had hands depicted on them. The hands are slender and rest closely against the body, directed towards the navel. Curiously, on the pillars of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is approximately 12,000 years old, we find the exact same hand posture, with very long, slim fingers pointing to the navel. Similar depictions can be found all across the world by various other ancient civilizations. We must also consider that traditionally, Easter Island was known as the navel of the world. Similarly, Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey was referred to as Potbelly Hill, which again hints at a central navel-like concept. Navali Kori, another ancient site in southeastern Turkey dating back to around 10,000 to 11,000 years ago, now destroyed, was a sister site to Göbekli Tepe. At Navali Kori, like on Easter Island, numerous statues were found with hands directed towards the navel. Notably, one of the statues shared an identical design with a base that supports the Moai statues on Easter Island. This design depicts what appears to be 2 human forms standing or dancing together. The most shocking similarities can be found when we examine the petroglyphs on the back of the Moai statues. Compare these carvings with those found at Göbekli Tepe. At the top of Göbekli Tepe's vulture stone, we see 3 handbags. On top of the Moai statues, we see a face, and next to it are also 3 objects. Below these, we see bird figures, and between them, we see a circle. On Göbekli Tepe, we see a Scorpio, while on the Moai statues, we see a symbol resembling a Scorpio. At the bottom right of the vulture stone, we see a headless man. On many of the Moai statues, we don't see a headless man in the bottom right corner. Instead, we see the decapitated head that is missing from the body of Göbekli Tepe. Are all of these correlations just coincidence? And if they aren't, how is this possible, considering Easter Island and Göbekli Tepe are situated on opposite sides of the globe? The approximate distance between these two locations is around 8,600 miles, or about 14,000 kilometers. Moreover, Göbekli Tepe is approximately 12,000 years old. Does that mean the civilization on Easter Island could also been from this time period? And if these carvings can be found on both sites, this means that the message they were trying to convey must be very important. But what does it mean? In 2017, two scientists came forward with a remarkable answer. Chemical engineers Martin Sweatman and Dimitrios Tsikritsis began examining Göbekli Tepe's famous vulture stone and believed that the depiction was, in Sweatman's words, encoding some kind of information. And upon closer examination, they thought they knew what that information was. They proposed that the animals depicted on the pillar were in fact zodiacal representations of ancient constellations, a scorpion as Scorpio, a duck-like figure as Libra, a wolf as Lupus, and so on, each arranged around a circular shape in the center representing the sun. In this way, Sweatman and Tsikritsis believed that the vulture stone provided a date stamp for some sort of event in human history, the carvings recording a time in the past when the constellations were arranged as they were on the stone. But what could this event have been? Sweatman and Tsikritsis believed the vulture stone provided an answer for that too. They declared that the series of square symbols near the top of the pillar with strange lines descending from them represented the fragments of a comet falling to Earth, while the headless man in the bottom right corner symbolized the disaster and loss of life these fragments caused. As they proposed in their seminal article in Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry Journal, the vulture stone was a memorial to this devastating event, probably the worst day in history since the end of the last ice age. Their most interesting and important piece of evidence that this was true was not simply their interpretation of ancient carvings, but what happened when they tried to determine when this proposed comet event had taken place. If the carvings were recording a specific date according to the alignment of the constellations, then what was this date? Using computer software, Sweatman and Tsikritsis had determined 3 times in the past in which the constellations were aligned as depicted on the vulture stone: 4,350 BCE, 10,950 BCE, and 18,000 BCE. Why was this so important? Because 10,950 BCE corresponded perfectly with something called the Younger Dryas event. Younger Dryas was a cataclysmic event roughly 12,900 to 11,600 years ago in which the Earth underwent a period of global cooling, which pushed many parts of the Earth into Ice Age conditions. Geological and archaeological records show that this period was one of terrifying destruction across the globe, a time of super tsunamis and mass flooding, of severe wildfires which filled the atmosphere with enough ash to block out the sun, a period of worldwide animal extinctions. While the existence of the Younger Dryas event is well documented, scientists have always been unsure of what exactly caused it. One of the leading hypotheses, which has long existed, is that the Younger Dryas event was caused by a comet exploding in Earth's atmosphere, showering the planet with fragments, the largest of which would have crashed into the ice caps covering North America at the time, vaporizing them instantly and throwing the Earth's entire ecosystem out of whack. According to Sweatman and Tsikritsis, the vulture stone at Göbekli Tepe, showing the constellations in exactly the position they would have been in when the Younger Dryas event took place, was in fact a record of the event taking place, and moreover, of it specifically being caused by a comet. As Sweatman said in an interview, "I think this research, along with the recent finding of a widespread platinum anomaly across the North American continent, virtually seal the case in favor of a Younger Dryas comet impact." Could this be true? Could Younger Dryas have definitively been caused by a comet? And could the vulture stone at Göbekli Tepe and the similar depictions on Easter Island be a record of this disaster laid down by an ancient civilization missing from our history books? Things get even stranger when we take a look at the massive stone ruins of Vinapuu. These megalithic mortarless structures may actually predate the Moai statues themselves. The main wall is composed of enormous slabs, with each stone interlocking with the next. The blocks fit so well that you can't even slide a piece of paper between them. If you watched our series before, you probably noticed that this structure is not similar but identical to other megalithic stone walls across the world, such as that at Cusco, Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, and Ollantaytambo. Also those in Egypt, and all across the globe to Japan. Similar to those structures, the wall at Vinapuu is seamlessly assembled using irregularly shaped stones with rounded edges and includes small stones filling the gaps. In fact, the Moai statues themselves have a significant similarity to these strange figures found on the cliffs of northern Peru, attributed to the Chachapoya culture. Interestingly, these are not statues but actual sarcophagi that represent the so-called cloud people. The similarity with the Moai statues is incredible. The Chachapoyas are a lost culture about which we know very little. What we know is that they predated the Inca by more than 6 centuries, living in the northern highlands of Peru. But let's get back to the stone structures. In 1774, Captain Cook and his British expedition marveled at the precision of the megalithic masonry on Easter Island. Cook even compared these meticulously fitted stone walls to the best constructions in England, expressing particular admiration for a large wall at Hangaroa. Tragically, this wall no longer exists as its stones were repurposed in the construction of a new harbor. Many of the ancient megalithic structures along the cliffs, observed by early explorers like Cook and William J. Thompson in the 1700s and 1800s, have since succumbed to the relentless ocean surf and landslides. By 1923, explorer and author J. McMillan Brown visited Easter Island, noting that the tooling and fitting of the Cyclopean blocks were exactly the same as those in Peru. Decades later, in the 1950s, Norwegian author and explorer Thor Heyerdahl conducted significant archaeological digs on the island. He discovered a megalithic wall of finely hewn and perfectly fitting blocks on the landward side of an ahu, a structure that predated the Middle Period walls visible above ground. Nothing similar was found elsewhere in Polynesia, leading Heyerdahl to assert that the architectural inspiration likely originated from South America, the nearest continent to the east. Despite everything, mainstream historians and archaeologists state that there is absolutely no connection between South America and Easter Island, let alone other parts of the world, such as Egypt and Japan. But there are other mysterious correlations found on Easter Island. In 1864, a Roman Catholic friar exploring the villages of Easter Island made a captivating discovery in many Rapa Nui homes of the native people of the island. He encountered various sticks and tablets adorned with mysterious etchings. These markings, shaped like humans, animals, and various geometric forms, intrigued him. Upon inquiry, the locals referred to these inscriptions as rongorongo, a term in the Rapa Nui language meaning to speak out or to recite, suggesting a linguistic function. Despite its apparent significance, the meaning of the rongorongo script remains a mystery as it's still not deciphered. Moreover, While some native Rapa Nui people hint at understanding its meaning, they often withhold this knowledge from outsiders, leaving a significant mystery intact. Surprisingly, a similar script was found at Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, which was part of one of the oldest civilizations in the world, known as the Indus Valley Civilization. We have an entire documentary on the Indus Valley Civilization, which some believe actually predates the Sumerians themselves. Like the script found on Easter Island, the Indus Valley script is also indecipherable, and strangely, it looks very similar to the script on Easter Island. But how is this possible? Does this parallel suggest an ancient global connection that might link these disparate cultures? It is hypothesized that around 15,000 years ago, sea levels were as much as 350 feet lower than they are today. This significant drop in ocean levels could mean that what we currently recognize as separate islands might have once been interconnected by a series of land bridges. This could lead to a possibility of an ancient international cultural connection via southern Tamil, extending through the now sunken island chains from the Indian Ocean towards Australia and Polynesia into the South Pacific. This geological configuration could have facilitated migrations and cultural exchanges across these regions, potentially linking diverse ancient civilizations. The mystery surrounding Rongorongo deepened with the findings of Dr. Robert Schoch, who was investigating Easter Island. His wife, Catherine Ulisse, made a striking observation linking the Rongorongo script with plasma forms studied by Dr. Anthony Parrott. These forms, appearing in the sky during solar storms, resembled the mysterious Rongorongo glyphs. Ulisse proposed that the Rongorongo tablets might be ancient recordings of celestial events witnessed during intense solar activities around 10,000 BC. Plasma impacting Earth could lead to dramatic environmental and geological effects, such as heating and fusing rock, igniting flammable materials, melting ice caps, and vaporizing water bodies, which in turn could trigger prolonged heavy rainfall and a subsequent warming of the climate. The subsequent release of pressure from the melting of massive ice sheets might also provoke earthquakes and cause molten rock under pressure to erupt as volcanoes. Such chaotic conditions are believed to be documented by ancient petroglyphs and the Rongorongo texts. The plasma event, dated around 9,700 BCE, is hypothesized to have wiped out advanced civilizations and high cultures of that era.
So we suggest, Katie and I, that maybe the Rongorongo tablets are recording some kind of, if it's solar plasma outbursts, or maybe in the context here, other type of plasma configurations, cataclysms, geomagnetic storms. Could it be recording this? In fact, when you look at the glyphs, they seem to, in many cases, morph from one form to another, as if they're recording like a film.
Additionally, radiation from the plasma might have impacted mental and psychic capacities, possibly explaining the widespread myth of a golden age, a period when beings possessed superior mental faculties. This event around 9,700 BCE aligns well with Plato's description of Atlantis, suggesting it may have been the historical basis for these legends. The script's presence on Easter Island and its potential connections to the Indus Valley civilization propose an ancient intercontinental cultural exchange. The Rongorongo script, with its birdman symbolism and perplexing glyphs, remains one of the greatest linguistic mysteries, potentially holding keys to understanding ancient global migrations and exchanges. Yet, the true nature of its origin and meaning continues to elude scholars, making it a captivating subject of study in the fields of linguistics, archaeology, and anthropology. Most shocking was the similarity between the Rongorongo symbols and the Nazca geoglyphs. Take a look at yourself and make the comparison. There are miles of caves beneath the island, and many of them haven't even been explored. One of the most interesting cave networks on Easter Island holds incredible mysteries and is associated with the ancient cult of worship of an entity known as the Birdman, a being that seemingly came from the sky and captivated the Rapa Nui so much that they abandoned their previous religion and started worshiping it. In this cave network, which has many extensions, some of which are not yet excavated, we can find a mysterious petroglyph depicting a head with large eyes. Many believe this depicts some kind of otherworldly being, as similar pictographs have been found all across the world, including the Nazca people, Japan, Sumeria, and many more. The Rapa Nui people refer to these deities as the Makemake. If we go deeper into this cave network, we can find more carvings of strange beings that do not resemble regular humans. At this section of the cave, there are dozens of these depictions, and more surprisingly, right below these images, there are ancient bones that were left for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Till this day, the bones haven't been tested as the place is still considered sacred. There are many more sites with petroglyphs that are barely visible today, most of which represent the Birdman. In fact, in 2017, a groundbreaking discovery was made regarding the iconic Moai statues of Easter Island, specifically their massive 13-ton stone hats known as pukao. Utilizing advanced techniques in photography and 3D modeling, archaeologists found a surprising diversity of petroglyphs carved into these hats. These intricate carvings, which are barely visible today, suggest that multiple groups of people may have contributed to their creation, indicating a more complex social structure and cultural expression than previously understood. Considering these hats are separate from the Moai statues, it's quite a mystery how they managed to place them on top of the statues. It's well known that all Moai statues had their pukao on top of them, and considering some of the statues are 30 feet tall, lifting a 13-ton block at such a height is still unexplained. The lifting and transportation of the Moai statues themselves is also quite an achievement, and there are several theories of how this was possible. These statues were primarily carved at the Rano Raraku Quarry, a volcanic crater that provided the main source of the island's easily workable volcanic tuff. The process of carving the Moai was a meticulous and labor-intensive endeavor. The Moai were carved directly out of the rock face, with the sculptors starting at the head and progressing downward until they reached the torso, leaving the back of the statue attached to the rock. Once the front and sides of the Moai were completed, the final and perhaps most risky stage involved detaching the statue from the bedrock. This was done by carving a deep groove around the base of the statue and then using wooden levers to gradually pry the Moai free from the rock face. But how were the statues transported, considering some of them weigh up to 82 tons? According to the legend, the Moai statues walked to their position. One of the earliest and most famous theories was proposed by the Norwegian adventurer and ethnographer Thor Heyerdahl in 1955. Heyerdahl theorized that the Rapa Nui people used wooden rollers to move the statues. According to his hypothesis, the islanders cut down trees to use as logs. These logs were placed under the massive stone statues, which allowed them to be rolled along the ground from the quarry at Rano Raraku to their final locations on the ceremonial platforms known as ahu spread across the island's perimeter. Heyerdahl even tested this method successfully, although the task was very hard and required substantial manpower. But according to the legend, the Moai statues weren't dragged. The legend states that the statues walked to their locations. This led to another interesting theory. The idea, which at first may sound fantastical, is actually grounded in practical engineering principles and has been demonstrated in experimental archaeology. The walking theory was notably revitalized by archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, who conducted extensive fieldwork on Easter Island. They proposed that the Rapa Nui used a method involving ropes and a carefully coordinated rocking motion to move the moai upright. According to this theory, the statues were tilted forward, and ropes were tied around the head and base of the statues. Teams of people then used the ropes to rock the statue from side to side, advancing it forward in a controlled walking-like motion. This method of transportation would explain several peculiar features of the moai. Many of the statues have a D-shaped base, which facilitates rocking motion without allowing the statue to tip over completely. Additionally, this theory aligns with the wear patterns found on the bases of transported statues, which are consistent with the kind of abrasion that would occur through such a rocking motion. To test this theory, scientists along with a team including National Geographic conducted an experiment using a replica of a moai. They demonstrated that with 3 strong ropes and a team of about 18 people, a 5-ton moai could be moved in this fashion at a reasonable pace and with considerable control. Still, we're not sure if this method will be possible for the statues that weigh 82 tons. Regardless of their actual method of transportation, there's the mystery of their placement. The nearly 1,000 massive moai statues are dispersed throughout the island in a manner that lacks an apparent systematic arrangement. If the statues were intended solely for symbolic or ritualistic purposes, one might anticipate finding them in prominent positions, such as atop hills or mountain peaks, where they would be highly visible. Surprisingly, this is not the case. Instead, the moai are often located in less conspicuous places, including coastal areas and lower elevations, facing inward towards the island's interior rather than outward towards the sea. This unusual placement strategy suggests that the moai may have served purposes beyond mere visibility or aesthetics. Recent theories propose that the positioning of the statues could be strategically linked to essential resources or social structures within the Rapa Nui community. For example, some researchers believe the moai were placed near freshwater sources, playing a crucial role in marking vital resources for survival. Researchers used statistical analysis and digital mapping and found striking correlations. The majority of the moai statues were indeed located at freshwater sources. This hypothesized that the statues were positioned to mark these critical resources, serving not only as monumental art or religious symbols, but also as practical indicators of water locations vital for survival. By marking freshwater sources, the moai would have played a critical role in the social and economic life of the island, helping to manage and maintain access to this scarce resource.
The blue areas are close to freshwater sources, while the yellow farther away. And what's really fascinating is that most of the ahu heads are in the blue areas near water sources. It really does seem like there's a genuine relationship.
But who were these people that managed to survive and thrive on such remote and isolated place? One of the most intriguing aspects of the Rapa Nui people, as recorded by early European visitors, is the presence of individuals with red hair among the predominantly dark-haired Polynesian population. This characteristic has sparked various hypotheses about their origins and genetic makeup. In fact, many believe the so-called hats of the moai statues are not actually hats, but their red hair. Researchers like Brian Forster believe that the Polynesians weren't the first to settle Easter Island, and they only arrived there around 1,000 years ago, discovering the remnants of a more advanced pre-existing civilization. This hypothesis suggests that the first Polynesian settlers found either the remains or perhaps even living members of an earlier society that had developed significant technological advancements, which may have influenced the subsequent cultural and architectural developments observed by later visitors. When Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen first arrived on Easter Island in 1722, his crew documented a surprising diversity among the island's inhabitants. According to Roggeveen's logbook, the population included a wide range of physical characteristics. They noted tall and short individuals, people with black, red, and even blonde hair, as well as variations in skin color from light to dark. This diversity is particularly notable given the island's isolated location in the Pacific Ocean. Such observations have fueled speculation about the origins and composition of Easter Island's population. The presence of diverse physical traits might suggest multiple waves of migration, possibly from different parts of Polynesia or even from the Americas, although evidence for the latter is more contentious among scholars. The variety in hair color and skin tone among the inhabitants could also be attributed to genetic diversity within a relatively small gene pool, which can amplify less common traits. This blending of characteristics might indicate that Easter Island was a melting pot for different cultures and migrations over the centuries. But how sophisticated and developed was this first civilization that built the massive megalithic structures? Curiously, on the Marquesas Islands of French Polynesia, located approximately 2,300 miles northwest of Easter Island, there's a carving of the 7 tikis. The tikis refer not to actual statues, but to a group of legendary figures or demigods who are important in the cosmology and folklore of the Marquesas Islands. These figures are often described as creator gods or ancestral spirits who played a crucial role in the creation myths and the spiritual life of the Marquesan people. These tikis look very similar to the Makemake gods depicted in the caves of Easter Island, which also have large eyes. But that's not the only connection. There's an old story on the Marquesas that an ancient powerful chief had 7 sons whom he valued greatly. As the sons reached maturity, the chief decided it was time for them to prove their worth and courage and prepare them for future leadership. To accomplish this, he tasked them with a formidable challenge. They were to embark on a voyage to a distant and sacred island. This island was not only far away but shrouded in mystery and said to be guarded by spirits and other supernatural entities. The journey itself would be treacherous, involving rough seas and unpredictable weather, testing the sons' navigation skills, resilience, and endurance. Moreover, the chief instructed his sons to bring back a token of their journey, typically an object of spiritual significance, such as a sacred stone or feather from a rare bird, which were believed to hold powerful mana, which is spiritual energy. On Easter Island, there's an ancient tradition where young men would participate in a daring and highly competitive ritual known as the Birdman Competition, or Tangata Manu. This event was not just a test of physical prowess, but also a profound spiritual and cultural practice that connected the participants with their ancestors and the divine. The competition took place annually around the village of Orongo, a ceremonial village perched on the edge of a high volcanic crater overlooking the sea. The goal was to obtain the first egg of the season from the sooty tern, a seabird that nested on the nearby islet of Motu Nui. The contestants, or hapu, each sponsored by different clans or tribal leaders, would swim across the shark-infested waters to Motu Nui, enduring harsh conditions and risking their lives in the process. Many didn't survive the competition, drowning or getting eaten by a shark. The one who survives and successfully brings an egg would then be declared the Birdman, earning a sacred status and ruling powers for his clan for the duration of the year. This ritual, steeped in the belief of the mana, spiritual energy carried by the egg, mirrors in some ways the quest of the Marquess-in-Chief's sons. Both practices involve a perilous journey to a sacred place, the retrieval of an object imbued with spiritual significance, and the potential for elevated status upon successful completion of the task. But that's not the only connection. One of the most iconic and intriguing sites on Easter Island is the ceremonial platform known as Ahu Akivi. Unlike other platforms scattered on the island, this one is quite unique. On this platform, there are 7 Moai statues, and these statues are notable not only for their number but also for their orientation. Unlike all Moai statues that face inland, these 7 statues face seaward. Could these 7 figures be somehow connected to the legend of the 7 sons of a great and powerful chief from the Marquesas? And does that mean there was a connection between these islands? But how far does the connection of Easter Island to other sites around the world actually goes? The ancient equator theory proposes a fascinating concept that some of the world's greatest cities and man-made wonders, spanning continents and cultures, align along a straight line around the globe, forming an ancient great circle. One of the most striking alignments is the Great Pyramid of Giza, which aligns with Machu Picchu, the Nazca Lines, and Easter Island along a straight line around the Earth's center, with an astonishing margin of error of less than 1/10 of 1 degree of latitude. But the alignment doesn't stop there. Other ancient sites of significance, including Persepolis, Mohenjo-Daro, Petra, the Sumerian city of Ur, and the temples at Angkor Wat, fall within 1 degree of latitude of this line, adding to the mystery and wonder of this global phenomenon. Furthermore, this line passes through areas of the world that are still largely unexplored or unexcavated, such as the Sahara Desert, the Brazilian rainforest, the highlands of New Guinea, and underwater regions of the North Atlantic Ocean, the South Pacific Ocean, and the South China Sea, hinting at even more hidden wonders waiting to be discovered. The alignment of these sites is easily observable on a globe of the Earth with a horizon ring, where lining up any 2 of these sites on the horizon ring will place all of the sites right on the horizon ring. The breathtaking connection among ancient sites worldwide tells an incredible story often overlooked by millions. Although history books don't mention these alignments, could the placements of these sites be mere coincidence? Or did ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians, Maya, Olmec, and Inca, received guidance from more intelligent and more ancient global civilization? There are many more enigmas on Easter Island, like the presence of magnetic stones scattered across the island's landscape. These magnetic stones, also known as Mahana stones or natives' compasses, are natural rock formations that possess magnetic properties, making them unique geological phenomena. One theory suggests that the Rapa Nui people utilized the magnetic stones for navigation and orientation purposes. One of the most well-known magnetic sites is a large oval rock called Tepito Kura. This rock has a high ethnographic value and was first described by William J. Thompson on an expedition in 1886. He noted that the local inhabitants considered it very significant. Older stories indicated that the rock had come from far off of the island and was brought by the first settlers. Because of its high iron content, this stone warms up more than others and causes the compass to behave strangely. Many visitors put their hands on it to capture their energy, or also, according to the belief of some, increase female fertility. Easter Island remains one of the most enigmatic prehistoric sites on Earth. As researchers continue to unravel the secrets of Easter Island, one thing remains certain. The island's ancient past holds untold treasures and revelations that have the power to reshape our understanding of human history and civilization. We will continue to research and bring more documentaries for you. If you wish to support our cause and contribute to our research and production of more series, you can join our Patreon or click the link in the description. And for those of you who've missed our previous video, which is on the prehistoric megalithic structures of Japan, you can find the link in the top pinned comment.